What was the longest you had to wait for a game or a sequel? The anticipation, the wait to play the game you want to just have in your hands right at that moment. For me, this was Borderlands 3. I've been a big fan of Borderlands for a while now, about 10 years. The first time I played a Borderlands game was actually in 2013. I started with Borderlands 2. While I've always played video games, I did kind of lose interest in them for a little bit. To show my age here, I was in high school from 2008 to 2012. And while I played a lot of games in the first couple of years of high school, a lot of them were replays of games, like Kingdom Hearts and stuff like that. My family didn't have a lot of money, so it was hard to get new games and keep up with what was coming out. I only had an Xbox 360 and a Wii for new consoles, and while I did have older consoles, it was really hard to obtain games for those older consoles back then, as they weren't readily available from places like GameStop. And since it was around 2008, 2012, smartphones weren't really a thing yet, and computers weren't really available in households like they are today. With this, I never heard of Borderlands when it came out. I never even saw the cover of the game, or at least I never noticed it. So, when looking for games to play with my best friend, when I had my own job and my own money in 2013, I found this game called Borderlands 2. I looked it up, watched some gameplay on it, and right away I was hooked. I have always been a fan of RPGs. As I stated before, the first video game I ever beat for myself was Kingdom Hearts 1, and with that, then I was pulled into other RPGs from Square like Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest. And combined with FPS gameplay, which was actually kind of new to me as I never really got into them before, the only game that I had played before 2013 that was an FPS was Halo. It felt like the game that had called out to me specifically from the things that I've seen. When I finally got the game and played it, I was in love right away. I loved playing as Zero, the silent sniper with a mysterious past. I liked his gameplay style, and I just thought he was really cool. Me and my roommate would play this game for hours and hours, creating multiple characters to play through the game over and over. This then led me to play Borderlands 1 right after playing Borderlands 2, which I actually do prefer Borderlands 1 years later, and that's primarily just due to the Armory DLC, and I do like farming in Borderlands 1 more, but just by a hair. It's very close to how much I enjoy both games, and in 2014, that's when I was able to view the brand new game that was coming out, which was the pre-sequel. While the game does have a lot of criticism nowadays for the pre-sequel, I love the game more than Borderlands 2 when it actually came out. A lot of that had to do with being able to play as Athena. Athena to this day is my favorite Vault Hunter to play as. Just feeling like Captain America with a sword is so cool to me. I love being able to just hold up the shield, not get damage, and then just throw it back at people to just smack them in the head. I do understand why people do not like the game as much. There is very little endgame, no real grind, and the only real raid boss in base is the exact same as the final boss, just with more health. It just had a lot of small issues, but I still do really like this game to this day myself. Borderlands 3 is kind of actually in a similar spot to the pre-sequel right now, to where it's just in a really weird spot. It is loved by half the community and disliked by the other. I personally think this is due to a few reasons. Borderlands 3 is the only Borderlands game other than Borderlands 1 that does not introduce new Vault Hunters to play. I understand the reason as to why, that the DLC for Vault Hunters never did as well as the main 4 Vault Hunters, but I still do find it odd that they were excluded. The reason for the DLC Vault Hunters were to have more replayability. It brings people back and have new ways to just explore the game and how it's played. I mean, think about how cool it was when we first saw we could play as Jack, but I mean, not really, but it was still amazing. Or how we theorized who Krieg was when he was first introduced. While they made new DLC to make up for characters like the 4 skill trees in Borderlands 3, I feel like it was a slightly hollow experience compared to what we had prior. Also, while playing the game, the screen can be cluttered with different effects, which can either give eyesight just issues with just eye pain, or it can even cause headaches. This can be from various different things, like the ghost effects if you're using a ghost build, or bullets from enemies having different colors, just giving a lot of screen pollution. And it just is really something that is odd to see in a Borderlands game. Like, you always think it's going to be over the top, but with this, it's just a lot to look at. A lot of times you kind of get confused where you're even shooting at because you can't really see anything that's happening. And kind of just like the pre-sequel at launch, the biggest criticism for Borderlands 3 was that it had little to no replay value at the end of the game other than the trials, which in my honest opinion, trials are bad. They are not fun. They are just lukewarm time trials that just try to make you clear it as fast as possible, which is just not super exciting. There was also no raid bosses at launch, which was really weird to see for a Borderlands game. And the fact that you were still restricted to level 50, which meant you knew that there was going to be level caps coming, this just kind of killed endgame farming for a lot of people. There was nothing really to do, and knowing it was all just going to be for nothing in a couple months just kind of left a bad taste in people's mouths. But with this, I think the real issue that people had and were most conflicted on with the game's release was nerfs. For some reason, Gearbox went in on a nerf spree with guns and gear when the game released. If a gun was being used by the community more than others, Gearbox would pretty much be like, hey, stop using that one, use another gun instead, because we worked hard to create all these guns. Then they would nerf the gun in question, but they wouldn't really buff any other guns to replace the gun that they nerfed. This just made all guns kind of feel bad after a little while. I never really understood the thought of nerfing a weapon in a PvE game. I understand small balance adjustments just to kind of make things more straightforward and straight-lined, and that there's not just one build that's going to destroy everything in the game. But it just kind of leads to a bad feeling in people's minds when you just destroy the thing that they loved playing. It just never makes sense to me personally. With this, for some reason, it just kind of made, like, at the game's release, that Gearbox didn't want you to play the game that you had waited 7 years for. It just felt bad. And while I still enjoy the game and I played it a lot when it first came out, it did affect me also. And the thing that got me the most personally was the small level cap increases. After just the second one, I was already over it. I was over grinding for gear I had loved just to be gone and not be able to be used anymore in just a month or so. Then I just have to grind it all over again. This almost made me quit the game, which is funny to say now because it is my favorite game in the series. It just felt like whiplash at the start. Like, everything was changing every week and it was just a lot to keep up with. Now, with all those things said, I do love this game to the bottom of my heart. And I want to talk about a couple things that I actually do really like about the game as well. One of the main things that I do love about this game is that each Vault Hunter is very fun to play as. They are all extremely different, and the skill trees are insane for all of them. Flak is my favorite to play personally, as I've always been a sucker for assassin type characters with a focus on stealth. The first time I saw Fadeaway, I was absolutely in love. It had been my main skill since the game started, and I've only switched off of it a couple of times. I switched to Rack Attack a couple times, and that was mainly when the grenade build from the Krieg DLC came out and when Fadeaway got nerfed close to the beginning of the game's lifecycle. It was around the time of February for when, I don't remember the name of the sniper, but it came out for Valentine's Day before DLC 2. That, I absolutely love that build. That was a lot of fun. I also do like to play as Zane. He is my second favorite, but I only really like playing him for one build, and that is for the Zap Cannon. I just love using the zap cannon to run around with the Unforgiven with that 300% crit damage and just one-shotting mobs as I just pop their heads. It's just hilarious to me, and it feels kind of Doom-like with Zane's speed. It's just a lot of fun. And while I don't play them as much, I do still really like Moze and Amara. Moze, I do think, is a little overpowered personally, so I don't really like to play as them. It's kind of like Salvador from Borderlands 2. I never was able really to get into them because I just didn't like how overpowered they were. I do like finding a character and giving them a good build, not picking a character because they are the good build. It's just more of a personal preference to me. I also love the fact that each tree has an action skill. It gives so much replay value, and it helps make a build stronger by being able to build around a skill that works with it. Builds are also a lot easier to make than in Borderlands 2. With Borderlands 2, we were kind of restricted with OP levels and slag. This made a lot of builds very similar even if you were to play a different character. But in Borderlands 3, they got rid of slag, and weapon parts are not nearly as important as they were in Borderlands 2. This makes getting the guns you want to use in the game a lot easier and have them be way more useful for longer, and they don't really drop off nearly as much as they did in Borderlands 2. Borderlands 3 somehow streamlines and improves on mechanics from the previous games and just kind of makes them a little better. Sure, the screen can get cluttered and the difficulty can be an issue when you're going through Mayhem, but I didn't find Mayhem to be that much of an issue. I do not like OP levels at all. I find them tedious, and the guns you spend so much time grinding just lose luster after like 2 OP level runs. With Mayhem, you just can crank it up to 11 at the start, go to Moxie's bar, and grab a crit and a hail, and then you can use those to grind the weapons you want at Mayhem 11. It's a very nice streamlined way of implementing something like OP levels without having it be too much of a hassle. The game also just feels really good to play. Guns and skills feel amped to the max, and it feels like I'm playing a really well-refined Call of Duty, but it's actually just a kick-ass RPG with a PP grenade. While the story isn't the best, it's also not as bad as people make it out to be. Sure, the twins are annoying as hell, but isn't that kind of the point? They're supposed to be a parody of the streamers and YouTubers you can't stand and always make fun of. They play the role perfectly. While I do think the final boss is pretty lame and easy, I like the twists and turns you get along the way of the story itself, and being able just to get to explore so many new places in the Borderlands universe when before you were just stuck on Pandora. And getting to explore those new places in Borderlands 3, it makes the game feel so much bigger, but not in a bloated way like some open world games these days. It kind of has that Elden Ring design a little bit, where there's something in almost every corner in the map. And the maps are not too big, but they're also not small. If you really needed to, you can get to the other side of a map with a car, and it really only takes about a minute or two. The game knows how to handle exploration, and it knows how to do it very well. And a lot of that comes down to the new challenge system that they put in place in Borderlands 3, where someone will ask you to do a task for them, and if you do it for them, you get rewards. They are the definition of optional, as where they are there so you can do them if you want, but you are in no way felt as if you have to do them. It is a strict do it if you want to, and if you do it, you get some stuff. It just makes exploring new maps so much more interesting. Open the screen just to see some new places that may have a challenge to complete was one of my favorite things when I first started playing the game. And if I start a new character, I still do them to this day. I actually have ADD, which is attention deficit disorder. It's hard for me to put a long time into a game, and a lot of the time it just causes me to lose interest in a game and stop playing altogether. But I have somehow put over 1,000 hours into Borderlands 3. And it's due to that good old Borderlands charm that it just can't really be explained. The games just feel so unique, and they really are. And while I have issues with the game, no game is perfect. To me, the smallest of good things about this game outweigh the bad, especially after all the DLC and updates have come out to make the game even better than it was at launch. While this game does have flaws, I really don't think that it deserves all the hate it gets from the community sometimes. The game is amazing, and the people that are saying, you get too many legendaries in this game, I like it when they feel special like they are in Borderlands 2 when they rarely drop for you. Honestly, if you say this, let me just pose this to you. Why are you mad that the game wants you to have fun with the unique and cool gear that makes the game feel good to play? Even if you don't like that, just don't use them. People have fun the way they like to have fun. If it's Borderlands 2 for you, that's awesome. But don't push people down just because their views are different for the games that they like over yours. But at the end of the day, no game is really worth 7 years of wait. But Borderlands 3 is one of the best examples of a game that is still fantastic despite that long wait. Let's hope that Borderlands 4 comes out sooner than later. I mean, hell, it's still crazy to me to think that Borderlands 3 is 4 years old already. Time really does fly. If you got to this point in the video, please make sure you hit the like button and you subscribe for the next video. I also am going to post links to my 2 favorite Borderlands creators in the description, that being Killer6 and JoltsDude. They were a huge inspiration to me when really getting into Borderlands, and they have really just kept my love of this game going after all these years. So please go check them out. They really do deserve all the love. And honestly, I couldn't be more appreciative of the reception I've been getting over the last couple of videos after changing the structure of my channel, going from a Pokemon focus to just a general focus. I've been getting a lot of just positive feedback, and I really appreciate every single one of you who has been commenting on my videos, hitting the like button, subscribing. It's honestly meant the world to me over these last couple of weeks. And I know with having a full-time job, it can be a little hard to make content, but I really do like making videos for everybody. And I hope that I can just bring a little tiny bit of joy to your day. My name is Riku. Thank you so much for watching. Take care, everybody.